everyone, it's Taylor, and welcome back to Above the Yellow Line with another episode of Through the Timeline. This is a segment that is dedicated to meeting those in the motorsports industry and hearing their stories. This episode, I was thrilled to talk to Cody Ware about his season so far, his mental health advocacy, and some anime, so I'm excited to bring that conversation to you guys, so without further ado, let's get to it. This episode of Above the Yellow Line is presented by Haymaker Coffee. If you work hard, run hard, fight hard, and play hard, Haymaker Coffee has the coffee for you. Make sure to use the promo code RACE10 to get 10% off your order of Haymaker Coffee. Alrighty, everybody, I am very excited about today's guest on Above the Yellow Line, the driver of the number 51 at Rick Ware Racing. We have Cody Ware. Cody, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. First off, how was your off week? How was it to kind of chill for the weekend?
Oh, it was nice. I actually spent some time in Vegas. Nurtec had their national sales meeting there, so kind of made a little work and play vacation in Vegas for my off week. It was nice.
Very nice. Did you go to any casinos? Anything exciting over there?
Yeah, the convention was actually at the conference center at the Bellagio, so Nurtec had me put up in the Bellagio for the week, so it was beautiful and bougie.
Oh, that's nice. That's really nice for an off week.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Talk to me about how you got your start in racing. I read somewhere that you were actually in med school before you went full time. Is that correct?
I was pre-med. So yeah, I think I was talking to Steve from NBC the other week. And I know he said, I think he put med in the article, but it's pre-med. So yeah, I was going to La Sierra University. I wanted to be an oncologist, and they actually had a cancer research center at the university there in La Sierra in Riverside, California. And so was doing that until I decided that, hey, I need to focus on my racing. But even before that, I grew up racing Legends cars, late models, and modifieds back in like 2012. So about 16 when I started racing, and did a lot of that at Charlotte Motor Speedway, so running like the winter heat and the summer shootout and Legends cars at the Speedway. And after that, did a little bit of late model racing. Actually did a lot of my short track racing and modifieds, especially at Bowman Gray. Actually used to drive one of Tim Brown's backup cars at Bowman Gray for about a year or so, and had a lot of fun with that. So did the oval thing for a bit, and then actually transitioned over into more of a road racing route for a while, where I was running an IMSA, doing like Porsche Cup, Lamborghini Super Trofeo, also a lot of like SCCA, like Spec Miata racing and stuff like that. And so I actually ended up using my road racing experience to kind of get me back into NASCAR, where I used a lot of my IMSA experience and resume to get me approved to run the Nationwide Series, Xfinity Series now at Mid-Ohio back in 2014. So definitely a very weird way to kind of move up the ranks, kind of bouncing around, a lot of back and forth. But yeah, definitely used a lot of the road race experience, wildly to actually get back into NASCAR at the top 3 level.
Now, I know you're in NASCAR right now, but do you have a favorite series that you've ever raced that you can call your favorite?
Not really. I mean, I'm a lot like my dad. I'm just a adrenaline junkie and racer at heart. My dad's raced everything from dirt bikes to cars and things like that. And I'm the same way. I've raced super bikes and motorcycles, cars, prototypes, IndyCar, NASCAR, and I love it all. Anything that gets the heart rate pumping, I'm a big fan of. But obviously, I've made the most amount of memories and experiences in NASCAR. So obviously, that's home to me for sure.
And this year, you're making all new experiences in the Gen 7 car. I wanted to ask you your opinions on it. Are you liking the Gen 7? Are you liking that challenge?
Yeah, I think, there's definitely bugs to be worked out with the car. But overall, I think I like it from the standpoint of it reminds me a lot of a road race car, having an independent rear suspension, sequential gearbox, kind of like an old school, kind of like late 2000s Grand Am car almost. And so I enjoy kind of having the sports car vibe a little bit in NASCAR. I know that some of the fans and maybe some people watching at home are a little taken aback by it, but I think it's a step in the right direction to keep NASCAR relevant, especially as we're trying to get new fans and new faces watching the sport.
And how do you feel the car has done in closing the gap between the bigger teams and the smaller teams?
I think it's done a good job. Not every weekend the practice results and qualifying and the race speed doesn't always necessarily show it, but I think what it does do is on our days where we're on it, we've got everything right and our setup's good, we're definitely right there and have those good days. So I think, not every weekend are we right there with the big dogs, but when we put everything together and all the pieces of the puzzle fit together just right, that's when we can shine. And with the old car, even if we had a really good day, it didn't really show as far as speed went. Now with this new car, when we do hit our marks, both as a driver and as a team with the mechanics and the crew chief, that shows way more than it used to, for sure.
And you said a step in the right direction, trying to figure things out. And you have figured things out. This year, you have 3 top 20 finishes at really prestigious tracks: Darlington, Charlotte. I was actually at that race, and Daytona as well. 17th there, which was I think your best career finish in the Cup Series. Given how difficult and prestigious those tracks are, like, what does that tell you about the direction your team is going in, and what positive changes do you feel like you guys have made this year compared to last year?
Yeah, I think that overall our average speed is just way better than it was in years past. Our consistency is something that we definitely are trying to work on every weekend. But as far as having the 3 top 20s this year, that's already better than we had last year. So obviously, average finish is definitely a lot better. And if anything, that it definitely makes some of the hard days tougher, because we had probably a solid day at St. Louis going before the steering rack failure. And then at Sonoma, we kind of struggled in that last stage after a bad pit stop. But, for me, it definitely gives me a lot of motivation and excitement to see that, what we all thought was going to happen, which is this next gen car is going to help us get better alongside positioning ourselves with Ford, with the engines, and with Haas from a development side. We've definitely stepped our program up. And if anything, when we have bad days, it's more frustrating when we know we could have been there if a few other things went our way. So it definitely, definitely the proof of concept's there where this car can make us run better. And obviously with our reinvestment going down from 4 charters to 2 has definitely made a big improvement as well, being able to take that money to improve the 2-car program.
And you talked about some frustration. I want to kind of dive into our mental health topic. Last month was Mental Health Month, Mental Health Awareness Month, and you've been very much of an advocate for mental health awareness. So in 2018, you tweeted, I think maybe for the first time, about your experience and your struggles with anxiety, depression, and you recently went into detail about some bullying that went on in middle school and high school. And first off, I want to say I'm sorry that happened. I mean, nobody should have to go through what you did, but the fact that you're turning that into advocacy for me is incredible. And I wanted to ask you, what was it like opening up about that experience, and what was the feedback you got from that?
I mean, yeah, as far as when I actually went into kind of the trauma and the experience that happened over social media this past month was really positive. And I remember the first time when I did, started talking about these things back in 2018, I was very worried and skeptical, because at that time, there really wasn't a whole lot of people talking about it. Bubba Wallace was around the same time that I was, as far as starting to open up about mental health stuff. But, even in professional sports as a whole, there wasn't really a whole lot of mental health talk, and especially in a sport where there's definitely a stigma of, masculinity and, got to be the tough guy in these things. I was like, man, people might look down on me for talking about these things. But I ended up using that as kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it, because I think that that's the big thing, not just for men, but for women and anyone who struggles with mental health issues, is that, it doesn't make you weak. You're not, small or insignificant because you're taking your mental health seriously. And kind of the way that I try to explain it to someone, if I had like an elevator pitch of 10 seconds, it's like, you would take, you take your body's health seriously. Well, your brain is just as much of a part of your body as your physical body. So you need to take care of that as well. And so obviously just trying to get rid of that stigma, and like you said, kind of turning my experience into a positive and kind of a motivating factor for me to be vocal about it, is the way that I try to, conceptualize it for myself. But it's all about showing people that they're not alone, and that even somebody that's driving in the Cup Series, has things that they can't control, that they're dealing with, that they still have to put time and effort into fixing and making things better.
How do you go from, when you put the helmet on, obviously you have to have a totally different mindset. How do you go from leaving a personal life behind once you're in the car and just kind of having that winning mentality? How do you do that?
So it's really not that hard for me. For me, racing is kind of the reason why I fell in love with it so quickly. Was it immediately became my escape, and where kind of all the background static and chatter and noise kind of went away. And so it's the one place where I feel more at home in the race car than I do in my own bed when I go to sleep at night, because it's the one place where I can drop everything, all of my worries and insecurities and doubts, and just live in the moment, enjoy it, and focus on what I have to do. And so really the toughest part about racing for me is all the things that revolve around being a race car driver that's not inside the race car itself. So the making sure that I can be, mentally and emotionally sound and be outgoing and talk to people and meeting sponsors and all the things that can be very anxiety and stressful for a guy that's more of an introvert and doesn't, go out and do a whole lot by, when he's away from the track. And so to do all of those things and to make sure that I'm doing my obligations the best that I can at the racetrack and in a way doing all sorts of stuff. That's the tough part for me. When I get in the race car, that's the fun and the easy part for me, for sure.
And you talked about outside the car, how it's a little tougher to focus on the mental health or the mentality there. I wanted to ask, I don't know if you use the term self-care, but even just outside of the car, how do you take care of your mental health?
Yeah. So, I go to therapy every week. I have a therapist I see on Tuesdays, almost every week. And so obviously that's a huge part of it. But then also, I tell people it's really important to, love yourself. And I do not do a good job of that at myself sometimes, but, just doing little things for yourself can go a long way with how you treat and how you view yourself and your own self-confidence. And so, I always tell people, like, when I'm feeling down or I'm beating myself up, I might treat myself to like an ice cream or something simple. And it might not seem like that big of a deal, but when you can just, give yourself that moment to like reward yourself or just do something nice for yourself, that can do a lot to kind of help your own perceived self-image and how you view yourself, which for me helps a lot, especially with my confidence issues and the things that I deal with, especially with all the hate and the things that I try to ignore on social media and things like that.
And another thing I wanted to ask too, I think I read on Twitter, you like to watch anime. Can you talk to me about that? Like what you're watching right now?
Yeah. So, I've been watching anime for forever. I remember back in like middle school, I would watch like Toonami, see like Naruto and Inuyasha and all that stuff back when I was, 11, 12, 13 years old. And right now I finally got back on watching Attack on Titan. I'm on season 3 now. As far as stuff that's like this new to this season, I've been watching a Tomodachi game, which just came out a month or two ago. And then I've been trying to catch up with Black Clover because I watched like the first 100 episodes and they got to be super long, like One Piece type deal. And I'm like, I can't watch this for forever. So I'm hoping to catch up with Attack on Titan. I think the final season's coming out here pretty soon. And then I can watch that when that comes out.
For me, like wanting to get into anime a little bit more, is that the show that you would recommend to people that want to get into it? Or is there another one that you would recommend starting out with?
Attack on Titan's pretty rough. It's pretty graphic. It's not terrible. I've definitely seen worse, but it's still like a shonen. They market it to like kids and teenagers, which is surprising to me. But I'd say like Black Clover. Honestly, Sword Art Online is kind of like the stereotypical go-to, like, this is my first anime, but it's a good show. People knock on it because it's typically people's first, but that it's people's first because it's so easy to get into.
And then backtracking a little bit about social media, you talked about how there's some negativity with it, but then there was also some positivity when you kind of advocated for yourself and your mental health. How do you limit your screen time with social media?
I definitely try to. For me, I really enjoy interacting with the people that support and follow me, and that's one of the reasons why I try to stay on it. At least every now and then, because I really appreciate the people that support me and message me and talk to me, and especially when I get DMs from people saying like, "Oh, hey, like, you were open about your mental health, and I've been struggling, and this really helped me out a lot." Just knowing that someone else out there cares or is dealing with the same thing. So for me, that's definitely the fuel that keeps me trying to use social media in a positive way. But I still have to limit it because obviously the more time I spend on social, typically I'll run into people that are just, out there to stir the pot. And obviously I need to learn to like let those things go a little bit more, but it's tough, when for me, like I could never fathom just like hating somebody or talking crap to somebody that I don't know or have never seen before in my life. And so it's hard for me to conceptualize just some of the stuff that gets tossed my way, but I know I'm not the only one. A lot of drivers deal with all sorts of stuff. It's just a little bit tougher for me because of the things that I deal with. So for me, I think it's a balance of, I enjoy interacting with my fans and the people that, can relate to my experiences, but then also still have to, moderate the amount of time I spend on it to not get sucked down the rabbit hole of all the bad stuff that comes along with it.
And finally, I wanted to ask you about sports as a whole. I know this year we've seen a lot more tragedies involving mental health from sports, from soccer, even basketball, or even just outside of motorsports. And I wanted to ask you if you feel like the world of sports is doing enough to support athlete mental health. And I wanted to ask you too, what NASCAR has done to help support athlete mental health.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a whole, I think that it seems like the world's going in the right direction. One of my big inspirations outside of NASCAR is Naomi Osaka. Just the way that she handled the situation, and no matter the amount of hate that she got, which is on a global scale, and still stood her ground and stood up for what she needed and what she believed in. Was really impressive. So to me, it's like, well, if she can do that, I can do what I'm doing. And as far as NASCAR goes, I've talked about it on other podcasts and interviews where even as far back as last year, NASCAR has really been doing a lot for mental health in the industry. They actually hooked me up with the therapist and counselor that I'm currently seeing right now. So this was back, I want to say, the spring race at Richmond. I got called to the NASCAR hauler, which typically you're like, oh crap, like I'm in big trouble. Like typically it's nothing good when you get called to the NASCAR hauler. And so I walk in and it's Steve O'Donnell, Scott Miller, and I think Jay Fabian. So I am so ultimately screwed. I don't know what I did, but I did something big to get all these three people in here. And so I sit down and they start with like, hey, like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm good. How are you guys doing? And so like, well, just wanted to check on you. And I'm like, do what? Like, I was very taken aback. So I'm like, you just wanted to check on me? And they're like, yeah, well, we saw some of your, tweets and some of your social media and just wanted to make sure that like you were doing okay. And, I was still a little on the defense, but I didn't want to just outright lie or just be like, everything's great, everything's fine. So I'm like, yeah, I'm struggling a little bit and definitely trying to work through some stuff. And they're like, well, we have this sports therapist and sports counselor that we work with. He's really great. We would love to set you up with him so that you can also, take advantage of the services and kind of get going in the right direction again. And so I've been with him since, basically spring of last year in 2021. And so that was a really big deal for me because it showed that even being a driver for a small team and a family team, they took three of the big wigs in NASCAR, took the time to meet with me to do basically a wellness check with me, and then got me hooked up with the therapist that I'm still, working with today. I think that's a big step and really shows kind of the family and community of NASCAR and how much they really care about everyone involved in the sport. And I talked to them a lot about ways that they can also help other people in the industry, not just drivers, but crew members and pit crew and team owners and things like that to try to, help anyone that needs the help in the industry. And so it was really cool for them to talk to me about a lot of that stuff. We actually did a video last year during Mental Health Month. I talked about the story that I talked about on social media last month on Twitter, and really showed the amount of effort and care they're putting into, stepping up and kind of being progressive in that sense and really trying to show people that, they care and they see the serious issues like we do. And so I think NASCAR is doing a good job with that. Probably one of the better jobs I've seen. I don't follow mini stick and ball sports, so I can't speak on their behalf, but just from my world and my perspective, I definitely see that NASCAR is doing a really good job.
I'm so glad to hear that NASCAR has done a really nice job, as you said, with athlete mental health and advocating and getting them the help they need. Cody, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story today and being open about your discussion with mental health and for advocating for mental health awareness. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always glad to talk.
Well, that does it for another segment of Through the Timeline. Who do you want to hear from next? Let me know in the comments below. And with that, we are done with this episode of Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. With the truck race being this Friday night, we will not have a Friday night live stream. Instead, we are going to move it to Thursday night at 9:05 p.m. Eastern Time just to do a chill chat. But to hear more about the live stream and more from us at Above the Yellow Line, make sure to follow our social media pages at @TaylorKitchen_ on Twitter for post-race polls and daily questions, and Above the Yellow Line on Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Also, make sure to check out TobyChristieCom on all social media platforms to find great motorsports content, and TobyChristie.com to hear and read more from the teams and your favorite drivers. Last but not least, I want to thank Zyloware and Haymaker Coffee for supporting Above the Yellow Line and TobyChristie.com. You can find all those pages linked in the description below, but before you check those out, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this with your friends and family, and guys, thank you so much for supporting us here at Above the Yellow Line and TobyChristie.com, and until next time, I'll see ya.